Change is inevitable in business, yet one of the biggest obstacles to transformation is employee resistance. Despite the benefits of innovation, whether it's AI, digital transformation, or new operational models, a lot of employees instinctively push back. So why does this happen? And how can we, as transformation leaders, reduce this resistance and increase buy-in? So in this video, we're going to explore a fascinating research paper that offers evidence-based approaches to overcoming resistance by using status quo bias to our advantage. Now, the paper we're discussing here is titled, "I'll have what I had before, but with a cherry on top, leveraging status quo bias when introducing organizational change." Now, that's a bit of a mouthful, but it was written by Tom McLaren, Dr. Eric Fine, Dr. Michael Ireland, and Dr. Astha Malhotra from the University of Southern Queensland in Australia. And apologies if I've messed up any of those names. Now, this isn't a theoretical discussion. The research paper is based on a quantitative survey of over 222 participants, using controlled experiments to understand how framing organizational change affects employee acceptance. Their findings directly challenge the traditional burning platform approach that a lot of organizations still use to drive change. Now, before we get into the findings, let's clarify what status quo bias actually is. Status quo bias is a well-documented cognitive bias where people prefer things to stay the same even when change might be beneficial. And this happens because people fear loss more than they value gain. Familiarity brings comfort, while uncertainty triggers anxiety. And change requires effort, and we naturally try to avoid unnecessary effort, of course. Now, historically, leaders have tried to push change by disrupting the status quo, telling employees that if they don't change, they'll fall behind, face risks, or even fail to remain competitive. Now, this is known as the burning platform strategy, forcing urgency by painting the current situation as unsustainable. However, the research shows that this backfires because it just amplifies resistance. Employees often feel threatened rather than inspired, and this leads them to disengage, delay, or actively resist transformation efforts. Now, the study found that instead of focusing on what's changing, leaders should focus on what's staying the same. By framing change as a natural evolution rather than a radical shift, employees feel safer, more in control, and more willing to adopt new ways of working. Now, the most effective approach includes two elements. The first is emphasizing continuity, highlighting what will remain stable in the organization. And second, providing a justification, giving a small but clear reason for why the change is necessary. So let's take an example. Imagine you're introducing an AI-driven customer service chatbot in your organization. Now, the traditional approach, which is disruptive, goes something like this. We're completely changing how we handle customer support. AI is replacing many traditional processes, and we need to adapt quickly. Now, a framed approach, which is status quo bias aligned, would go something like this. We're keeping our strong customer service values, and AI will enhance the way we support customers, allowing our teams to focus on more meaningful interactions. Now, the key difference here is that the second version preserves what employees value while subtly introducing the change. Now, let's take this knowledge and turn it into action through a workshop. Now, this isn't documented in the paper, but I've developed it specifically for transformation leaders, project and change managers, HR professionals, and anyone responsible for change communication to use with their teams. And the goal is to help managers and leaders reduce resistance by reframing their messaging using status quo bias. So step one, as the facilitator of the workshop, you should start by really understanding the paper well, summarizing the key research findings for your audience, and explaining why traditional change communication fails quite often. Step two is to identify the current messaging. The participants of the workshop need to choose a real transformation initiative that they've been involved with. They'll then analyze their existing messaging to see if it frames change as a radical shift rather than an evolution. Step three is the change messaging challenge. This is where participants apply the research findings. First, they need to select a real initiative. Choose a past or active transformation project. Then analyze current messaging. Identify if it focuses on disruption rather than continuity. Next, reframe using status quo bias. Rewrite the messaging to highlight stability, familiarity, and gradual improvement. Then consider peer feedback, which means share the new messaging in small groups and refine it based on feedback. Now, by the end of this session, your workshop participants should recognize how status quo bias affects change adoption, understand why traditional change messaging often increases resistance, and learn how to reframe transformation communication to increase employee buy-in, and leave with a revised research-backed message for their real-world transformation initiative. Now, if you're leading transformation or any major change, understanding how employees think is just as important as the technical aspects of whatever might be happening, whether that's AI or something else related. By aligning with human psychology rather than fighting against it, you'll increase the chances of successful adoption and long-term business impact. Now, change is difficult. There's no getting away from that. But when leaders position transformation as an enhancement rather than a disruption, employees feel more confident and engaged. So as you move forward with your own transformation projects, take a moment to assess your messaging. Are you triggering resistance by focusing too much on what's changing? Or are you leveraging status quo bias to create a sense of stability and continuity? Now, if you want to dive deeper into the research, there's a link in the description below this video to the paper I've been talking about. I strongly recommend reading it and applying its insights in your own transformation initiatives. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in another video.